Gospel reading from St. Luke's Gospel. Now, that very day, the first day of the week, 2 of the disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus, and they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walked along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that are taking place there in these days?" And he replied to them, "What sort of things?" They said to him, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. Our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to the sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since this took place. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came back and reported that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who announced that he was alive. Then some of those with us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see." And he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on further, but they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. It happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that their eyes were opened and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them who were saying, "The Lord has already been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then the 2 recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. The Gospel of the Lord.
Blessed for this Christ.
That Gospel reading is kind of, in a sense, it kind of sums up the Gospel story. And you have the 2 disciples who followed Jesus and walked with him, traveled with him to Jerusalem. And they got to know Jesus, and they got to see the things that Jesus did. And they came to Jerusalem with great hopes. As they were saying, as they said to the stranger that came alongside them, we were hoping. They were hoping for so much from God, from Jesus. They were hoping for an end to their sorrows, an end to their oppression, an end to the kind of life that they experienced. They were looking for something new. And they came to Jerusalem, and Jesus was taken from them, was crucified, was put to death. And they said, everything is over. And despite having to come to know Jesus, despite everything that Jesus had said to them, they had no idea really what Jesus was on about. And they turned their backs on all their hopes, all their expectations, and they walk away. And while they walk away, this stranger comes and walks alongside them. And he said that this stranger that walked alongside them, they didn't recognize it was Jesus because they had no faith yet. They had no faith in the resurrection. And the stranger asked them, "What are you talking about?" as he walked along. And they stopped, looking downcast, we're told. And if you like, that's kind of sums up where they were at that time. With their heads down, downcast, without hope. And that's very much the experience we often have at a bereavement, at a great tragedy, at a death. We hang our heads, we're down our heads heads are downcast. And they said, are you the only one in Jerusalem who doesn't know of the things that are taking place there in these days? And to be able to say that, the disciples, to this stranger, who in fact was Jesus himself, was very ironic. Jesus himself was the center of everything that had happened in Jerusalem. And yet he asked them this question, and Jesus kind of probes, what sort of things? And they say the things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty indeed in word among all the people, and he was taken from us and crucified and put to death. And we were hoping, as they say. And Jesus then begins to talk, and he says, how foolish you are, how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. And he explains the scriptures to them. We have no idea of Jesus' words. We're not told, but we do know he brought out the truth of the prophets, he brought out the truth of Jesus' life to them. And they went, as they said later on, and we talked about it, they said, didn't our hearts burn within us when he spoke to us and explained the scriptures to us? And in some sense, that's what we're looking for here. We want consolation on the promises of the gospel, consolation in the truth of the resurrection. We want, in some sense, our downcast heads to be lifted up and our hearts to be burning within us.